Men are disturbed not by things but by the views which they take of them. Epictetus. Most people think they're good at reading others, that they can tell when someone is being genuine. They believe that a smile means happiness, eye contact signifies honesty, and a firm handshake equals trustworthiness. They operate under these simplistic rules, navigating the complex world of social interaction with a child's understanding of physics. This naive trust is precisely what allows manipulators to thrive. They bank on your assumptions, knowing that your reliance on superficial cues will blind you to their true intentions. We are not like them. We see the world as it is, a landscape of hidden motives and subtle power plays. We understand that every interaction is a negotiation, a dance of influence where only the observant survive. We dissect the unspoken language, the micro-expressions, the shifts in tone, the carefully constructed narratives designed to deceive. We don't accept the surface level, we dig deeper, searching for the underlying strategy. Because in the game of social dynamics, ignorance is not bliss, it's a vulnerability waiting to be exploited. The problem is, human beings are wired for connection, for trust. From the moment we are born, we are dependent on others for survival. This inherent need creates a bias, a tendency to believe, to accept, to see the best in people. It's a survival mechanism, but it's also a weakness. Manipulators exploit this weakness by creating an illusion of connection, by mirroring your emotions, by validating your beliefs, by making you feel understood. They build rapport not out of genuine empathy, but as a calculated strategy to lower your defenses. They know that once they have your trust, they have access to your vulnerabilities. And that access is the key to control. Think of it as a Trojan horse. They offer a gift of connection, a seemingly harmless gesture of friendship, but inside that gift lies a hidden agenda, a carefully crafted plan to undermine your position and achieve their objectives. To truly see hidden intentions, you must overcome this inherent bias. You must question everything. You must become a master of observation, noticing the subtle inconsistencies between what people say and what they do, between their words and their body language, between their stated goals and their actual behavior. You must learn to see the world through a lens of skepticism, not cynicism, but a healthy skepticism that allows you to evaluate information objectively, to filter out the noise and focus on the signal, to discern the truth from the lies. Because the truth is always there, hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered by those who know how to look. And the first step in learning how to look is understanding the psychological mechanisms that allow manipulation to flourish. One of the most powerful of these mechanisms is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort we experience when holding conflicting beliefs or values. To resolve this discomfort, we often unconsciously distort our perceptions of reality, rationalizing our actions or beliefs to maintain a sense of consistency. Manipulators exploit this by creating situations that induce cognitive dissonance in their targets. For example, they might ask you to do a small favor that goes against your values, knowing that once you've complied, you'll be more likely to comply with larger, more demanding requests in the future. This is because your mind will unconsciously rationalize your initial compliance, convincing you that the manipulator is not so bad after all, or that the request was not so unreasonable. Over time, this process can erode your values and make you increasingly susceptible to manipulation. Another key psychological principle at play is the power of framing. Framing refers to the way in which information is presented, and it can have a profound impact on how we perceive and interpret that information. Manipulators are masters of framing, carefully crafting their narratives to influence your perceptions and emotions. They might emphasize certain aspects of a situation while downplaying others, or they might use loaded language to evoke specific emotional responses. For example, instead of saying, "I made a mistake," they might say, "An unforeseen circumstance arose," shifting the blame away from themselves and onto external factors. By controlling the frame, they control the narrative, and by controlling the narrative, they control your understanding of reality. Furthermore, understanding the psychology of projection is crucial. Projection is a defense mechanism where we attribute our own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or motives to another person. A manipulator skilled in projection might accuse you of being selfish, when in reality, they are the ones acting selfishly. This serves two purposes. It deflects attention away from their own flaws and onto you, and it creates a sense of guilt or defensiveness in you, making you more susceptible to their influence. By understanding projection, you can recognize when someone is attempting to shift blame or manipulate your emotions. Recognizing the power of emotional contagion is also key. Emotional contagion is the tendency for people to unconsciously mimic the emotions of those around them. Manipulators often use this to their advantage, projecting strong emotions, such as anger or sadness, in order to influence the emotions of others. By creating a charged emotional atmosphere, they can disarm their targets and make them more likely to comply with their demands. Being aware of this phenomenon allows you to maintain emotional distance and avoid being swept up in their manufactured drama. Ultimately, reading hidden intentions requires a deep understanding of human psychology and a willingness to challenge your own assumptions. It's about recognizing the subtle cues, the unspoken language, the psychological games that people play. It's about seeing beyond the surface and understanding the underlying motives that drive human behavior. It is not about paranoia, but about awareness, about empowering yourself with the knowledge to navigate the complex world of social interaction with confidence and control. It's about transforming yourself from a pawn in someone else's game to a master strategist, capable of detecting manipulation and protecting yourself from its harmful effects. Picture this. You're at a networking event, a sea of unfamiliar faces and forced smiles. You spot someone across the room making deliberate eye contact, their expression radiating warmth and genuine interest. They approach you, extending a hand, their grip firm and confident. They launch into a seemingly innocent conversation, asking about your work, your passions, your aspirations. They listen intently, nodding at all the right moments, mirroring your body language, creating an instant rapport. They subtly weave in compliments, praising your achievements, your intelligence, your insights. You feel flattered, valued, understood. As the conversation progresses, they steer it towards a specific topic, a project they're working on, an opportunity they think you'd be perfect for. They paint a picture of success, of collaboration, of mutual benefit. They downplay the risks, exaggerate the rewards, and make it sound like a once-in-a-lifetime chance. You're caught up in the moment, swept away by their enthusiasm, their charisma, their persuasive words. You find yourself agreeing to things you hadn't planned on, committing to tasks you hadn't considered, and offering resources you hadn't intended to share. Later, as you reflect on the conversation, a sense of unease creeps in. You start to question their motives, their sincerity, their true intentions. You realize that their compliments were calculated, their interest feigned, and their offer self-serving. You were a pawn in their game, a means to an end, a target of their manipulation. This is the reality of social interaction, a constant negotiation of power, influence, and control. Everyone has an agenda, a hidden motive, a desire to get something out of every interaction. The key is to recognize these underlying intentions, to see through the facade, and to protect yourself from being exploited. The person at the networking event used a carefully crafted strategy, a combination of charm, flattery, and persuasion. They employed mirroring to establish a connection, using your own body language against you. They used compliments to create a positive emotional state, making you more receptive to their influence. They used future pacing, painting a picture of a desired outcome and creating a sense of anticipation. They also employed scarcity, framing the opportunity as rare and fleeting, creating a sense of urgency. By understanding these tactics, you can become immune to their effects. You can recognize when someone is trying to manipulate you, and you can take steps to protect yourself. It starts with awareness, with paying attention to the subtle cues, the inconsistencies in their behavior, the hidden agendas behind their words. It requires you to be skeptical, to question their motives, to challenge their assumptions. Don't take anything at face value. Always look for the hidden intentions. In this scenario, What was presented as a friendly exchange was actually a calculated attempt to gain influence and extract value. By being able to read this hidden intention, you can maintain control of the situation and avoid being taken advantage of. The weak fall prey to hidden intentions because they operate under a naive assumption that people are generally honest and well-meaning. They believe what they are told, they accept things at face value, and they fail to question the motives of others. This inherent trust, while admirable in some contexts, becomes a fatal flaw in the arena of social dynamics. It's a vulnerability that predators exploit. The weak fail to recognize that human interaction is often a strategic game, a dance of influence and power. They are blind to the subtle cues, the microexpressions, the carefully chosen words that betray hidden agendas. They miss the inconsistencies between what people say and what they do. They don't see the underlying motivations driving their actions. They become easy targets for manipulation because they are simply not looking for it. Their minds are not wired to detect deception, to analyze social situations with a critical eye. They are more concerned with being liked, with avoiding conflict, than with protecting their own interests. This desire for approval blinds them to the red flags, the warning signs that someone is trying to take advantage of them. They are too eager to please, too willing to compromise, and too afraid to assert themselves. This makes them susceptible to flattery, to guilt-tripping, and to other forms of emotional manipulation. The weak also lack the self-awareness necessary to recognize when their own emotions are being manipulated. They don't understand how their feelings can be used against them. They are unaware of their own biases and vulnerabilities, which makes them more susceptible to influence. They are easily swayed by appeals to their emotions, their fears, or their desires. They don't have a strong sense of self, a clear understanding of their own values and boundaries. This makes them easily influenced by the opinions of others. They lack the confidence to stand up for themselves, to say no, to challenge authority. They are afraid of rejection, of being seen as difficult or uncooperative. This fear paralyzes them, preventing them from taking action to protect themselves. The weak are often characterized by a lack of preparation. They enter social situations without a plan, without a clear understanding of their objectives. They haven't thought about what they want to achieve, or how they will respond to different scenarios. This lack of preparedness puts them at a disadvantage. They are forced to react to events as they unfold, rather than proactively shaping the situation to their advantage. They are easily caught off guard, and they are more likely to make mistakes. The weak also tend to underestimate the intelligence and cunning of others. They assume that everyone is as honest and straightforward as they are. They don't realize that there are people who are actively trying to deceive them, to exploit their weaknesses. This naivety makes them vulnerable to sophisticated manipulation tactics. They are easily fooled by elaborate schemes and deceptive appearances. They don't realize that appearances can be deceiving, that people often wear masks to hide their true intentions. The weak also struggle with delayed gratification. They are easily tempted by immediate rewards, even if those rewards come at a long-term cost. They are unable to resist short-term pleasures, even if those pleasures ultimately undermine their goals. This makes them susceptible to manipulation tactics that exploit their desire for instant gratification. They are easily lured into traps by the promise of quick and easy gains. They don't think about the long-term consequences of their actions. The weak often fail to learn from their mistakes. They repeat the same patterns of behavior, even when those patterns consistently lead to negative outcomes. They don't analyze their failures, they don't identify the underlying causes, and they don't take steps to prevent them from happening again. This lack of self-reflection perpetuates their vulnerability. They remain trapped in a cycle of exploitation, constantly being taken advantage of by others. The inability to adapt, to evolve, to learn from experience, seals their fate as perpetual victims. The strategic mind, the Machiavellian player, approaches every interaction as a complex game of chess, several moves ahead, anticipating reactions and calculating probabilities. They understand that surface-level communication is rarely the full story. Words are carefully chosen, emotions are often feigned, and hidden agendas simmer beneath polite exchanges. The key to reading hidden intentions lies in developing a ruthless objectivity, a willingness to discard assumptions and analyze behavior with cold, detached logic. Sentimentality and trust are weaknesses to be exploited, not virtues to be embraced. The Machiavellian observes, analyzes, and then acts with precision. They see people not as friends or enemies, but as pieces on a board, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and predictable patterns of movement. The first step in this strategic assessment is understanding the individual's core motivations. What do they truly desire? Is it power, wealth, status, affection, or something else entirely? These desires are the levers that can be manipulated, the vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Observe their actions, listen to their words, and pay close attention to their inconsistencies. People often reveal their true desires through slips of the tongue, impulsive decisions, and unconscious behaviors. A person who constantly boasts about their accomplishments is likely driven by a need for validation. Someone who always agrees with the dominant opinion is probably seeking social acceptance. Recognizing these underlying motivations allows you to predict their behavior and anticipate their moves. Once you understand their desires, you must then identify their weaknesses. Every individual has vulnerabilities, insecurities, and blind spots. These weaknesses can be exploited to gain an advantage. Are they easily flattered? Do they crave attention? Are they afraid of failure? These weaknesses can be discovered through careful observation and subtle probing. Ask seemingly innocuous questions, observe their reactions, and look for patterns of behavior. People often reveal their weaknesses through their defensiveness, their anxieties, and their attempts to compensate for their perceived shortcomings. A person who is overly concerned with their appearance is likely insecure about their looks. Someone who constantly interrupts others is probably seeking to dominate the conversation. Recognizing these weaknesses allows you to tailor your approach and exploit their vulnerabilities. The Machiavellian strategist masters the art of deception. They understand that honesty is often a liability, and that manipulation is a necessary tool for achieving their goals. This does not necessarily mean engaging in outright lies, but rather strategically withholding information, subtly misdirecting attention, and carefully crafting narratives that serve their interests. They become masters of impression management, presenting a carefully constructed image to the world, an image designed to elicit trust, admiration, or fear, depending on the situation. They understand that people are easily influenced by appearances, and that they can manipulate those appearances to their advantage. They learn to project confidence, competence, and charisma, even when they are feeling insecure or uncertain. This carefully crafted persona becomes a powerful weapon in their arsenal. Frame control is paramount in this strategic approach. The Machiavellian seeks to control the narrative, to define the terms of the interaction, and to shape the perceptions of others. They understand that whoever controls the frame controls the reality. This can be achieved through a variety of techniques, including selective framing, anchoring, and priming. Selective framing involves highlighting certain aspects of a situation while downplaying others, creating a biased perspective that favors their interests. Anchoring involves setting an initial reference point that influences subsequent judgments, making their desired outcome seem more reasonable by comparison. Priming involves subtly influencing people's thoughts and feelings by exposing them to certain stimuli, making them more receptive to their message. By mastering these techniques, the Machiavellian can subtly manipulate the perceptions of others and control the flow of the conversation. Emotional intelligence is weaponized. The Machiavellian learns to understand and manipulate the emotions of others, using empathy as a tool for exploitation rather than connection. They can feign emotions to gain trust, trigger emotions to distract or manipulate, and suppress their own emotions to maintain control. They understand that emotions are powerful drivers of behavior, and that by manipulating those emotions, they can influence people's decisions and actions. They learn to identify people's emotional triggers, their vulnerabilities, and their insecurities. They then use this knowledge to subtly manipulate their emotions, guiding them towards their desired outcome. They can feign sympathy to gain trust, express anger to intimidate, or offer praise to manipulate. They understand that emotions are a currency to be spent wisely, and that they can use them to their advantage. Anticipating counter-strategies is crucial. The Machiavellian assumes that others are also playing the game, and that they are actively trying to manipulate them. They must therefore be constantly vigilant, analyzing the motives and tactics of others and anticipating their moves. They learn to recognize common manipulation tactics, such as gaslighting, projection, and triangulation. They then develop strategies for countering these tactics, such as setting boundaries, calling out manipulative behavior, and refusing to engage in emotional arguments. They understand that the game is constantly evolving, and that they must adapt their strategies to stay ahead of the competition. They are always thinking several moves ahead, anticipating the reactions of others, and planning their countermoves. Exploiting cognitive biases becomes second nature. The Machiavellian studies the predictable errors in human thinking, the cognitive biases that lead people to make irrational decisions. They then exploit these biases to their advantage. They understand that people are prone to confirmation bias, seeking out information that confirms their existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. They use this to their advantage by selectively presenting information that supports their arguments while downplaying evidence that contradicts them. They also understand that people are susceptible to the halo effect, judging individuals based on their overall impression rather than on specific facts. They use this to their advantage by cultivating a positive image and associating themselves with successful people. They understand that by exploiting these cognitive biases, they can influence people's judgments and decisions. Patience and persistence are essential virtues. The Machiavellian understands that achieving their goals often requires a long-term commitment, and that they must be willing to wait for the right opportunity. They are not easily discouraged by setbacks, and they are willing to persevere even in the face of adversity. They understand that the game is a marathon, not a sprint, and that they must conserve their energy and pace themselves accordingly. They are willing to invest time and effort into building relationships, gathering information, and laying the groundwork for future success. They understand that patience is a virtue, and that by waiting for the right moment, they can maximize their chances of success. Maintaining a detached perspective is vital. The Machiavellian avoids emotional involvement, viewing interactions as strategic maneuvers rather than personal encounters. They understand that emotions cloud judgment and make them vulnerable to manipulation. They cultivate a sense of detachment, allowing them to analyze situations objectively and make rational decisions. They avoid getting emotionally invested in the outcome, understanding that failure is a possibility and that they must be prepared to adapt and move on. They cultivate a sense of emotional resilience, allowing them to bounce back from setbacks and maintain their focus on their goals. They understand that detachment is a strength, and that by remaining objective, they can make better decisions. Ultimately, the Machiavellian approach to reading hidden intentions is a ruthless and calculating strategy. It requires a willingness to discard ethical considerations, to exploit the weaknesses of others, and to manipulate situations to their advantage. It is a dark art, but one that can be incredibly effective in navigating the complexities of social interaction. While many might find this approach morally reprehensible, understanding its principles is essential for protecting oneself from manipulation and for achieving one's goals in a competitive world. The Machiavellian operates outside the bounds of conventional morality, focusing solely on achieving their desired outcome, regardless of the cost. They are the ultimate strategists, the masters of social chess, always playing to win. To understand the depth of this strategic approach, we can draw a parallel to the rise and fall of empires, the strategies of warfare, and the intricacies of historical conflicts. Every empire, every nation, every entity seeking dominance has always relied on the ability to read the intentions of their rivals. Consider the Roman Empire, not merely as a historical entity, but as a complex organism constantly engaged in a game of social chess on a grand scale. Their success was not solely due to military might, but also to their acute understanding of the motivations and vulnerabilities of their adversaries. The Roman Senate, a crucible of power plays, was a masterclass in reading hidden intentions, where alliances were forged and broken based on astute observations of political ambition. Similarly, in warfare, the greatest generals have always been those who could anticipate the enemy's moves, not just on the battlefield but in the broader strategic landscape. Sun Tzu's Art of War is not just a military manual, but a guide to understanding human psychology and exploiting weaknesses. The principles of deception, misdirection, and understanding the enemy's terrain, both physical and mental, are all predicated on the ability to read hidden intentions. Think about the Cold War, a decades-long standoff where the primary weapon was not physical force, but psychological warfare. The ability to decipher the Soviet Union's strategic goals, to understand their propaganda efforts, and to anticipate their moves in the global arena was crucial to the survival of the Western world. The intelligence agencies on both sides were engaged in a constant game of espionage, seeking to uncover the hidden intentions of their adversaries. The stakes were incredibly high, and the consequences of miscalculation could have been catastrophic. The Cuban Missile Crisis serves as a stark reminder of how crucial it is to accurately assess the intentions of a potential enemy, and how quickly a situation can escalate if those intentions are misread. The brink of nuclear war was averted not just through diplomacy, but through a careful analysis of the Soviet Union's strategic goals and their willingness to compromise. Even in seemingly more straightforward conflicts, the ability to read hidden intentions can be the key to victory. During World War II, the Allied forces' successful deception operations, such as Operation Mincemeat, relied on understanding the German High Command's expectations and biases. By planting false information and exploiting their existing assumptions, the Allies were able to mislead the Germans about the location of the invasion of Sicily, significantly contributing to the success of the operation. These historical examples highlight a fundamental truth. The ability to read hidden intentions is a critical skill in any arena where power dynamics are at play. Whether it's the rise and fall of empires, the strategies of warfare, or the complexities of international relations, those who can accurately assess the motivations and vulnerabilities of their adversaries are more likely to succeed. This ability requires a deep understanding of human psychology, a keen awareness of context, and a willingness to detach oneself from emotional biases. It's a skill that can be honed through careful observation, analysis, and a willingness to challenge one's own assumptions. By studying history and analyzing the strategies of those who have come before us, we can gain valuable insights into the art of reading hidden intentions and apply those lessons to our own lives. The key to reading hidden intentions lies in understanding the fundamental drives that motivate human behavior. Beneath the surface of polite conversation and calculated actions, there are core desires that shape our choices. The desire for power, the fear of loss, the need for validation, these are the engines that drive the social game. To accurately assess someone's intentions, you must first identify their underlying motivations. Are they primarily driven by a need for approval, seeking to please others and avoid conflict? Or are they more motivated by a desire for control, seeking to dominate and manipulate those around them? Perhaps they are driven by a deep-seated fear of vulnerability, constructing elaborate defenses to protect themselves from emotional pain. Understanding these motivations is not about judging them, but about recognizing the forces that are shaping their behavior. These deep-seated needs often manifest as predictable patterns. The person constantly seeking validation may fish for compliments or subtly undermine the achievements of others. The person driven by control may engage in subtle acts of sabotage or try to micromanage every aspect of a project. The person afraid of vulnerability may avoid intimacy or deflect any form of personal inquiry. By observing these patterns of behavior, we can begin to decipher the hidden intentions that lie beneath the surface. It is not enough